Hi, good Shabbos, everyone. How are you? Ruben Levine here again, talking about our Tshuva boot camp, our repentance boot camp, which we started a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the quick 1-2 punch, the Sur Rava Aseh Tov. During the 3 weeks, we learned that we have to begin the Tshuva process then, and we don't have all the training, we don't have all the capabilities just yet, we don't have a real process and formula to follow. But we get taught just that little martial art to jab and punch, to do a surmei to the Yetzer Hara and to the evil inclination, and immediately get that uppercut right back at them after you stun the Yetzer Hara and do a mitzvah. And then last week in Vad Chanan, we talked about this transition that we need to make from yira, from fear, from worshiping through fear, and how that has to be a precursor to being able to worship through love. In this week's Parsha, in Parshat Akev, I have rarely found one passage, a pasuk in the Torah that I begin to open up and really start to see what we call the Shiv'im Panim La Torah, the 70 different facets of the Torah. They say that the Chazal tell us that every single pasuk potentially has 70 different types of lessons and interpretations to learn out of it. And I wanted to share with you just a few that I've come up with on Parshat Akev. So the first pasuk in this week's parsha says, "V'haya Akev tishma'un." V'haya, if Akev tishma'un, you. The literal translation, if you listen with your heels of your feet, with the bottom of your feet, Eit hamishpatim ha'ele, these laws that are set forth, ushmartem va'asitem otam, and you follow them and you observe them, Vishamar Hashem Elokecha lecha, and God will guard you, take care of you, protect you, et habrit, also the covenant that he has with you, ve'et hachesed, and the righteousness and the forgiveness that he will provide to you, asher nishba la'avotecha, like God swore to give to your forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, we see here that Rashi points out, he actually brings down a Tanchuma. So here's one of the beautiful interpretations. He says, Lashon Akev. It's a very strange term to use the word Akev, the heel of your foot, to describe a level of observance that you should try to achieve. Ela hakavana lemitzvot she'adam dash mezalzel be'akvav shescharam merubah. He says we have this tendency sometimes to overlook the easy, simple laws and commandments that are given to us because there seem to be, for us in our own mindset, so insignificant and maybe not important. But beware, the reward for some of these commandments could be great. A perfect example is there are 2 laws in the Torah that tell us that we're going to be granted a long life if we observe them. One of them is Shiluach HaKan, meaning when you come across a nest with eggs in them, you should shoo away the mother bird from the nest before you take its eggs. You should not take those eggs in front of the mother bird. And then the other law we're told is that we have to do Kibud Ava'im, we have to honor our parents, and that also will give us a long life. So something that can just take a couple of minutes that seems insignificant, like shooing away the mother bird from the eggs, has the equivalent result and impact and reward of honoring our parents, which takes an entire lifetime and can be so cumbersome and so overwhelming. How is it? The simple man's mind cannot really fully understand why God built into the fabric of worship all these different commandments, some seemingly insignificant, some seemingly very difficult, and both of them together can open up a world of result and a world of benefit. So those things that we step on, that we kind of overlook, that we don't really pay much attention to as we just walk through our lives, can have the same amount of impact. That is one of the interesting things that's brought out from this passage, but it gets deeper than that. And I share with you what the Netivot Shalom writes. He says, "V'yesh lomer bazeh al dat ma'amar harabeinu hakadosh hamerujin zichuto yagen aleinu," that is this particular rabbi, "V'haya ekev tishmeun v'haya hu l'shon simcha." This is the term when you say "v'haya," it's from happiness, and he tells us the Rashi Tevot of "v'haya" is Yismechu Hashamayim v'tagel haaretz. These 4 words start with these letters, and it means that God becomes very happy and joyous when we do what we're supposed to do on this earth. And he points out further that it represents the different generations over the years, that there were earlier generations, our forefathers had this very closeness to God that was mental, it was panim el panim, they had nevuah, they saw God very, very clearly. Then later generations, they didn't see it so close, but they still had this love in their hearts, inside their body. And the later generations, the generation that we're in, is that there's a hester, God is so hidden, we don't see him, he doesn't talk to us, we don't have prophecy, we don't have this closeness that we feel every single time. And we are these late dorot, these late generations are the dorot of Mashiach, that the time of the Mashiach, the Messiah, is supposed to come. And it's a time when we're going to feel very distant from God. And it's those times when our worship still endures, that it's built into the heels of our feet that move us forward and have us marching forward. If you think about it, another beautiful interpretation is when you think of our forefather, Jacob, Yaakov, in the word of his name is Akev, that Yaakov, our forefather, the father of Israel, he was able to really exemplify this. He went through such turmoil in his life. He went through famine. He was separated from his favorite son, Joseph, for so long. He went through so much suffering, and he ultimately had to go to exile to Egypt, and he stayed with it, and he did it out of Yira, and ultimately he was able to get to Ahava. Right now, in this particular time, we do feel distance from God. We feel this notion that we have no control, and that there's just, everybody's nervous. And we have an opportunity to show HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to appeal to the love that he has to us, to continue and deepen our love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu by showing him that we will pay attention to even the most minimal commandments. And it's during this time, while we're going through this basic training, while we're learning to march one foot in front of the other, and we're learning all these skills on how to actually go to battle, not just with a jab and a punch, but learning and refining the way in which we have faith during this period of time leading up to Rosh Hashanah. So when we actually get to Yom Hadin, when we actually get to the time at which we're going to be at the Day of Judgment, we are truly battle proven, and that we have this ingrained into our ways, and we're taking it one step at a time, but every step we're acknowledging and we're forging forward. Sur meira va'aseh tov. And we're becoming almost mechanically inclined to follow this, not only in our minds and in our heads, and not only in our hearts, in the center of our body, but also in our legs and in our heels. From head to toe, we're fully engaged and we're fully committed. Have a good Shabbos.